All right, so today we're going to be taking a look at Cooper City, Florida.
Cooper City.
Yeah, sounds nice, right?
Yeah,
So, if you're a family and you're thinking about moving to Florida, Cooper City is always like right at the top of the list, right?
of course. Yeah.
But, we wanted to take a deep dive into, what's it really like,
Mm-hmm.
especially in terms of schools and, activities for the kids, right?
Yeah.
That's usually the top priority for families.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And, we found this blog post by Antonio Ortega LLC. He's like a local real estate expert down there.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because he kind of goes beyond just like, here are the houses we have for sale.
Right.
He really takes a deep dive into like the lifestyle.
To lifestyle.
Yeah, and you know what I really like too is that he had like these charts,
Oh, yeah. That's smart.
like breaking down all the different schools.
Yeah.
Like he had great schools ratings,
Mm-hmm.
all the different sports options,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of stuff. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at today.
Very data driven, which I always like to see.
I know, right?
Yeah,
So, just from reading this blog post, it looks like a really vibrant community.
it does. And very strategic, I think, for someone in real estate to showcase all of that.
I know. It's
Yeah.
like you get the sense that, he's not just trying to sell you a house.
Right.
He's trying to sell you like a lifestyle.
A whole life.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of lifestyle, did you see that it's right near Southwest Ranches?
I did. Yeah. Sounds like a place out of a movie.
I know, like a Western or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you imagine if you have kids who like love horses?
Yeah. That's perfect.
They could just like, ride over to Southwest Ranches
Exactly.
and, live out their dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
So let's take a look at some of these charts.
Okay.
So yeah, it looks like they have pretty much every sport you can think of.
It does. Yeah.
So baseball and softball, there's the Cooper City Optimist Club.
I love those Optimist clubs.
They always have the best like snack bars.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like real Americana.
Yeah.
Then for soccer, they have the Cooper City Soccer Club.
Soccer. Yep.
That sounds like a little bit, maybe more serious.
Something a little more serious.
Yeah, maybe they're training up the next,
World Cup stars.
yeah,
Yeah.
World Cup stars, exactly.
Yeah.
And then they also mentioned that you can just go and play basketball
Oh, nice.
at the Cooper City Sports Complex.
So drop in, like casual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they've got it all.
they do. They really run the gamut.
And then they also highlighted the Cooper City Pool and Tennis Center,
Okay.
which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Because you're in Florida, right?
Right.
So swimming is kind of like a necessity.
It is. It's not just for fun. It's also a safety thing.
It is,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's good that they have, that option.
Definitely. Yeah.
Now let's see. What about the schools? So yeah, like I said, he had this whole chart breaking down all the schools.
Okay.
And they had those great schools ratings.
Yes.
Did you see that Embassy Creek Elementary got a 10 out of 10?
I did. That's very impressive.
I know. A perfect score.
Yeah,
That's pretty amazing.
it is. That's tough to do.
Now for high school, they have Cooper City High.
Okay.
And it looks like they have, a good selection of AP classes.
No, that's good.
Yeah. A good arts program and of course, competitive sports teams.
Gotta have the sports.
You got to have the sports. But one thing I thought was really interesting was that he kept highlighting how walkable everything is.
Yeah, that is interesting. Especially the schools.
Exactly.
He mentioned how a lot of the schools are within walking distance of, neighborhoods.
Right. So you can just like,
Yeah.
walk your kids to school.
Send them off in the morning, no driving.
Yeah. It's safer. It's like a real community feel.
Yeah. And he even mentions some specific parks
Oh, yeah.
that are close by to those schools.
I know.
So you can stop off on the way home, play for a little bit.
Yeah. It's like he's really painting this picture
Yeah.
of a town where you can just like,
Yeah.
you walk everywhere. It's
Yeah.
safe.
Right.
It's like that old-fashioned kind of community.
Yeah.
I have a friend who moved to, I think it was Weston,
Okay.
and she moved there specifically because of the schools.
Okay.
But she ended up loving it because of the community.
Wow.
Like she said, it was just like
Yeah.
everybody was so friendly. She felt like she really belonged there.
Yeah.
And I think this blog post is really capturing that.
It is. I think Antonio Ortega LLC is doing a good job selling this place.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
So it definitely sounds appealing so far, right?
It does. I mean, who wouldn't want to live in a place like that? It's like idyllic. But there's always a but, right?
There's always a but.
Yeah. Every town has its quirks.
Every town has its downsides.
Yeah. Yeah. And we need to be aware of those too, right?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
how do we get like the other side of the story? How do we go beyond the marketing and find out what it's really like to live in Cooper City? We'll figure that out after a quick message from our sponsors.
Sounds good. All right, so we're back. And, we were just talking about how great Cooper City sounds
That does sound amazing.
based on that blog post, right?
I know. But, it's like anything else. You always got to get the other side of the story.
Exactly. It's just one perspective.
Yeah, it's like those, what are those things called?
Those little travel brochures, yeah.
Yeah, those brochures. They always make everything look so perfect.
They do, yeah. They airbrush everything.
And then you get there and it's like, wait a minute.
Right, where's the beach? This is not what I signed up for.
Exactly. So how do we avoid that with Cooper City? How do we make sure we're getting the real deal?
Well, I think the key is to go beyond just that one source.
Right. We need more information.
We need to do a little digging.
Like a detective?
Exactly. We need to put on our detective hats and really investigate.
Where do we even begin?
Well, I think a good starting point is online resources,
Okay. Like what?
like community forums.
Oh, yeah. Those can be really helpful.
Yeah, people are very honest in those forums.
They are. Sometimes brutally honest.
True, but that's what we need.
Exactly. We need the unfiltered truth.
I need to know what people who actually live there think.
Yeah. What are they saying about the schools? What about the traffic? Is it really as walkable as the blog post makes it seem?
Yeah, those are all good questions.
And, what about safety?
That's a big one.
Yeah, because the blog post mentions that Cooper City is a very safe town.
Right, but are there any areas that are, maybe not so safe?
Yeah. Every town has its good areas and its bad areas.
Exactly.
So we need to find out, what are the areas to avoid.
Yeah. And, even if an area is generally safe, it's always good to be aware of your surroundings.
Oh, absolutely. Don't be walking around at night with your headphones on.
Right, common sense stuff.
Yeah, but, sometimes people forget those things.
I do.
Especially when they're in a new place and they feel like, everything's so safe and perfect.
Right. And, another thing to consider is the cost of living.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Because the blog post mentions, homes in certain price ranges.
Right.
But what about everyday expenses, like groceries, utilities?
Yeah, how much does it cost to fill up your gas tank in Cooper City?
Exactly. Those are all things that can really add up.
And, it can make a big difference in terms of whether or not you can actually afford to live there.
Right. So there are websites that actually compare the cost of living in different cities.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can plug in your current city and then plug in Cooper City, and it'll give you a breakdown of how much more or less it would cost to live there.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really helpful for getting a sense of the affordability.
I love that.
Me too. Data is our friend.
Always.
Yeah.
So we've got community forums, cost of living calculators. What else?
Well, don't underestimate the power of good old-fashioned word of mouth.
Oh, yeah. Like talking to people who actually live there.
Exactly. If you know anyone who lives in Cooper City, reach out to them.
Yeah. Or even people who've visited recently.
That's a good idea, too.
Yeah, because they can give you that firsthand perspective.
Right. Like, what did they like? What didn't they like?
Exactly.
What did they wish they had known before they went?
Yeah. And, sometimes you get the best insights just from like casual conversations.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes the most valuable information comes from those informal chats.
I know. Like you might be talking to your hairdresser and they're like, oh, I went to Cooper City last weekend and it was amazing. Or they might be like, oh, my cousin lives there and they're thinking of moving because of this or that.
Exactly. You just never know where you're going to get that little nugget of information that makes all the difference.
That's so true.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got online resources, word of mouth. Any other tips for our detective work?
Well, don't forget about the power of observation.
Oh, you mean like actually going to Cooper City and seeing it for ourselves?
Exactly. Because nothing beats experiencing a place firsthand.
It's so true. You can read all the blog posts and forums in the world.
Right, but until you actually walk the streets and get a feel for the vibe.
Yeah, you don't really know what it's like.
You don't. So I would say if you're serious about Cooper City,
Yeah.
plan a trip, spend a few days there.
Like a little scouting mission.
Exactly. Walk around the neighborhoods, check out the parks, visit the schools,
Yeah. And, maybe even try some of the local restaurants.
Oh, yeah, good food is always a plus.
Always. So we've gone from reading a blog post to planning a trip to Cooper City.
That's what the deep dive is all about. Taking that initial spark of interest and turning it into a full-blown investigation.
I love it. So what are some things our listeners should keep in mind as they're doing their Cooper City research?
So we were talking about experiencing Cooper City firsthand.
Yeah, like actually going there and checking it out.
Exactly. It's one thing to read about it online.
Right, but actually being there is a whole different ballgame.
Totally. You can get a much better sense of the vibe, you know?
Yeah, like, does it feel welcoming?
Right. Is it walkable, like they say?
Yeah, can you really picture yourself living there?
Exactly.
And speaking of picturing yourself living there, let's talk about the schools again.
Yeah, those great schools ratings were pretty impressive.
I know, especially that perfect 10 for Embassy Creek Elementary.
But like we said before, ratings aren't everything.
Right, there's so much more to consider.
Like what kind of curriculum do they have?
Yeah, and what's the teaching style like?
Is it more traditional or more progressive?
Are there extracurricular activities that align with your kids' interests?
And what about class size?
Yeah, that's a big one for me.
Smaller classes usually mean more individualized attention.
And more opportunities for kids to participate.
And you know, another thing to think about is the school's culture.
Oh yeah, like is it a competitive environment or more collaborative?
Does it feel supportive and inclusive?
Those are all really important factors.
They really are.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you want your kids to be happy and thriving.
Exactly. And a big part of that is finding the right school environment for them.
And you know, it's not just about academics either.
Right. It's about the whole experience.
Like, are there opportunities for creativity and self-expression?
Are there sports teams or clubs they can join?
Those things can really help kids develop their passions and make new friends.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about that walkability factor we keep talking about.
I know, it's such a huge plus.
Imagine your kids being able to walk or bike to school.
Safely, without you having to worry about traffic.
It's like a dream come true.
It really is. And it's not just good for the kids.
It's good for the environment, too.
Less cars on the road, less pollution.
Everybody wins.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Cooper City.
Yeah. What are some final thoughts for our listeners?
Well, I'd say it definitely seems like a great option for families.
Especially those who prioritize education, safety, and a strong sense of community.
But remember, every town has its pros and cons.
No place is perfect.
The key is to do your research, weigh your priorities, and see if Cooper City aligns with your vision of a happy life.
Yeah, it's all about finding the right fit for you and your family.
And if you're ready to take the next step,
You start exploring Cooper City real estate.
Antonio Ortega LLC seems like a great resource.
They really do know their stuff.
And don't forget about that fantastic offer they have on closing costs.
Right, you can find all the details on their website.
AntonioLLC.com.
So whether you end up in Cooper City or another amazing town,
We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights.
and helped you feel more confident in your decision making.
Remember, knowledge is power.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
We'll see you next time.